challenger, racing for her freedom, Mouse. And now, our undefeated champion, Nitro! Last man standing wins. 3, 2, 1, strike! I think she's showing off. Wow, what a move! Oh, I don't think she can take much more. Headed straight for each other. Nitro Jet for the first time ever. Oh, that's it. Coming in hot. Game over, Mouse. Not looking good for Mouse.
Animators and artists. Liza Singer is a director at Marvel Studios who previously boarded on the Netflix feature High in the Clouds. We invited Liza onto our stream to discuss the visual storytelling in the original Animatic Meet Angel Part 1. Hello, Liza!
Hi, pleasure to meet you and meet you all on stream, vice versa.
So I'm really excited to talk to you about your Animatic, but before we get into that, I just wanted to ask you, without getting into details about your current project, what does the day-to-day role as a director in animation look like?
So directing is much more of a middle management kind of position, I would say, in the luxurious way of phrasing it. But what you really are is you're sort of in between the showrunner and the executive producers and the storyboard artists. And the idea is you're sort of taking an entire episode. So when you work with storyboard artists, they're generally, each get assigned a scene or a couple of scenes. And then as the director, you help determine who gets those scenes, what kind of scene they'll be working on, and then you kind of work with them to massage it into the entire episode that then you will be presenting to the showrunner. Directors also work with editors, direct scratch. There's a lot of different roles that directors wear and a lot of different hats that directors wear. So it is kind of similar to TV directors in a lot of ways for live action, in that you are kind of working with all these different roles. Sometimes even you direct and work with the art directors on the design side of things as well. So it's a management role. It really is like a leadership role, and you are sort of kind of directing the ship into the barge, if you will. So day to day, it's looking at sequences, giving notes on them. Sometimes I'm directing scratch halfway through the day. Sometimes I'm jumping into edit sessions, working on another episode with our editor. Sometimes I'm in meetings about design. It is, every day, lots of meetings, lots of art you're looking at on a day-to-day basis.
I want to ask you, what are some ways that being a director is similar to or different than being a storyboard artist on a production? And what are some of the roles that you might have in common, or some things you might be mentoring artists on? Right.
So storyboard artists kind of get to focus on one thing. That is sort of what's great is you get your page of scripts, your script pages rather, and you just kind of sit down and you draw. Directors are kind of look at the boards after they've been done and then sort of do red lines and kind of mentor and sort of lead the board artists in the direction. Sometimes directors will take on boards themselves, but I like to think of it as sort of what your responsibility is. So board artists have responsibilities over their section. Directors have responsibility over the entire episode. So it's kind of a more serious kind of management role, as well as a role that encapsulates so many aspects of, you know, storyboarding as well. So you almost, a lot of people sometimes call it a glorified revisionist in a way, because you are going in and really massaging and bringing the boards to where they need to be. But sometimes that's like full reboards, sometimes that's entire new scenes, you know, and directors have to be able to do that on the fly and constantly. So you need that experience of being able to do every aspect of an episode or show, because you're kind of putting out fires constantly.
Yeah. So I really am fascinated by the role of a director in TV animation. But the reason we invited you onto our stream today is to take a look at an animatic that you made. So could you take us on a quick run through of the animatic and and we can talk about some of the choices that you made during the production.
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked on this in my spare time for fun. I see myself first as a storyteller. Ultimately, I think a lot of artists do, and especially when you board, you just want to tell your own story. So this was like, for me, just a fun way to do that. So as I walk through the scene, that's just kind of a lead up. It's chugging a bit, sorry. So yeah, I think it's really chugging there. So we pan in on this bedroom, on this only source of light in the room, and then close in on a jewelry box. And then the jewelry box delicately opens, and we see some hands come into the foreground. And the necklace gets picked up. Sorry, again, it's chugging longer than I'd like. And then we see, sort of out of focus, the hands come into frame in front of this body. The necklace is gently placed on their neck. So right now, sort of what we've established is there's a person in a bathroom in a quiet bedroom at night. They put on the necklace, then close the bathroom mirror. And this is our first character reveal. So we're getting to meet Angel, which was the name of the segment. And as she comes into direct focus, we see a few key things. First of all, she's more beat up. She's a robot arm. Okay, probably not what you're expecting. And so that was sort of the idea of the lead-in of the scene, is that it was a misdirect. We're thinking it's going to be this average young girl in her bedroom, in her bathroom. And now we're like, okay, who is this person? The necklace that goes on, we kind of cut back into it to show to my beloved, again, maybe we still think this is her bathroom, this is her jewelry. And we see that she's sensitively and emotionally responding to it. We don't know the full context yet. And then there would be a knock at the door. We follow her eye direction, which leads over to the door. We kind of hear scrattling if there was audio in there. Some lag still. But again, the idea is that a lot of this is building tension. So as we go through, we're sort of following her story, following her emotions, and kind of getting into her headspace for a second there. Then we cut down and see, okay, there's a bag of jewelry and she's zipping it up. So now all of a sudden we went from, oh, this is her jewelry box, this is her bathroom, to, okay, maybe this isn't, maybe she's actually stealing all of it, or she's running away. We both don't have the context yet of like the idea here. So again, when I was coming up with the scene, I wanted to give a lot of misdirects because I want people to get comfortable and then immediately uncomfortable throughout the scene. And that is sort of the idea here, is that we don't know who she is yet, but that adds the mystery to who she is and want people to kind of get to know her even more. Because we're like, okay, she's not quote unquote your average girl, I guess. So she slings the bag on and then turns around. And with her turnaround, we meet, again, who's knocking at the door. Maybe we think, oh, it's a parent. Who could it possibly be? Maybe a friend, maybe someone that lives with her. What you probably don't expect necessarily within the context of the scene yet is that it's two giant bandits with big guns who definitely have some sci-fi accoutrements, like, you know, again, the lag clicked past it farther than I would have liked, but basically they are, you know, covered and decked out in cybernetics and so forth. So again, we're as shocked as she is, though, of course, we don't know how well she knows them and so forth. And then we get another aspect of her character, which is that she's quick thinking. So she sees the powder off to the side of the makeup that has been strewn about in this bathroom. She's like, okay, time to think fast. She grabs it and then tosses it into the bandits' faces as a makeshift bomb, smoke bomb, if you will. So we kind of get to see more of who she is through this moment, which is just this like fun-loving character that's quick-witted and thinks on her feet. Because again, she's not scared of them as someone might be who's less experienced with fighting bandits on the regular. She's like, I got this. So she immediately throws it into their faces. They don't expect it. And so as the smoke clears, get a little bit of a comedy moment, they're coughing. And then she uses that opportunity to slide through their legs. Hopefully play. Again, I apologize to everyone watching for all the lag that's going on. I think my computer is more crummy than I expected it to be in the live stream.
But this is really cool.
Yeah. So again, even though they're
Really cool.
The idea here is like there isn't actually a lot of action going on. There will be later on, and one thing I do have is a bit of a sneak peek of what happens in the rest of the scene. So immediately we cut outside and we see cars parked, her bike and another car watching on a hill. But the idea is it's a lot of action. We think of immediately like cool action sequences and cool fights, and that's definitely part of it. But building action for me, and I think what gets you to the next level of building your action is how to tell the story through that action, is how to build character, how to build tension and pacing throughout those action moments. So again, a lot of my action decisions were informed by the characters that are performing the actions. So again, she's quick and fast on her feet. She's quick-witted. She's kind of haphazard. She kind of works with her environment, and that it builds a lot into how she fights and how she will fight. The other characters, armor-brooding bandits, they rely on their guns, and that informs a lot of their character. And again, they're frustrated and annoyed by they're trying to capture this quick-witted girl. And yeah, so this is a little preview of some of the stuff that's not in the Animatic online yet, but I figured I would show a little bit of what I've been working on in the meantime. This is a secondary introduction, so this is another character we're seeing. Who are they? Again, a lot of lead in to their character as they're in the van. I will give the name. This is Mickey, smoking a big cigar. He's sitting in the car, frustrated. Do we think he works with bandits? Probably. Your first time seeing this? Absolutely. He looks like another one of those bandits. And that shock when clicking through.
It's the Stream and Storyboard Pro fighting over the same amount of RAM.
It sure is, and again, unfortunately my laptop, I guess, has seen better days. So, okay, so we cut into the phone. We see him dialing in, and there's some references to other parts of what would be part of the show, if you will, if this was a show. I can only hope. And then he's calling Angel, whose ID photo is her giving the middle finger. So immediately, again, kind of showing their relationship a little bit. But he does have her number. So again, it's immediately showing that they kind of have both an antagonistic relationship, but a familial one. And then we cut back into the scene. It'll cut transition. It fades from the face on the phone to her face in the mirror as we get there extremely slowly. So it's a match cut fade. And again, to see her in a completely different situation, she's now hiding behind the bed. Some time has passed, and it's her demanding where she is. She's trying to catch her breath. follows. And then sneaking quickly to the window. Oh, it clicked all the way back. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. Oh, geez.
So what I really love about this animatic is I see a lot of like storyboards and action scenes where cool things happen, but in this you see the character look at things and think and react, and I think that really pushes it ahead a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that that's where I always go with action. And why I do love doing action, though, is I definitely, there's so much cool action out there. And I think that we're going to get to a point where it's oversaturated. And what makes one's action different is building character into it. And that's sort of what I try to reinforce on anything sort of I direct and work with board artists. And even with my own work is always, there needs to be an emotional foundation, an emotional core, and a character core to everything. For me, the characters come first, and the action is just a space to play with who they are even more, because I think it can be done with both comedy and the physicality of the person as well. So I appreciate you saying that, and that's always something I try to capture in my scenes, is trying to build characters that immediately spark a reaction, that immediately you can empathize with and relate to, and that's what the action is there for. Is you want to know who is in this scenario. How did she get herself in this scenario? How is she going to get out? So where we're leaving off in the scene as it clicks through, without me even touching it, is basically she thinks she's finally out. She gets to the window. She's about to get out, and then her phone rings, as we saw Mickey calling her earlier. And then she's like, hi, so you guys are going to go easy on me, right? And then they immediately start shooting. So even more, again, going into the comedy of it. And I think that that's also the fun I like to have too, is I like to make action pretty comedic, because I think either it's very emotional or you kind of pick an emotion. And I think for this scene, it was meant to be very comedic. My God, it certainly is clicking around and lagging. So maybe for the rest of the stream, I might stop sharing the screen for a bit.
Yeah, I think maybe being a little bit easier on the computer might be a good idea. So one thing that I wanted to ask you about this is the boards are very, very detailed. This is a personal project. How would this differ from a project in like a production?
Yeah, so I think that that is something important and key that I definitely want to remind people that are looking at this. This is for me to pitch or to present a kind of a project and an idea. So it's not what you would see on a production level. It is serving a different purpose. So it's serving to sell the idea of the project and not sell, not be in the production level stage of things. I get to work on this. So toning to this level, probably you don't need to do on a day-to-day basis. If you have time, that's great. But again, your schedule should have time for toning and emotion. Feature level things generally do. That's why feature schedules are longer, as they allow you to add that toning and all those little details. What I would say is for the characters themselves, generally in action, you don't have to draw in the face all the time, especially if you have them kind of bouncing around. Like on the slide, Angel is very detailed. You don't have to do that. I think the general shape of the character, anatomy, and physicality of where they're going is important. The board is now saving. Generally, like when I first introduced the bandits, for example, they're highly, highly detailed. That was me designing them for the first time. So generally speaking, when you're working on a production, everyone knows what the design is going to be when you send it overseas or to a different animation studio. The animators have the designs to reference, so they'll be working off of those and matching those designs. Here, the only reference you have to the designs are within the boards themselves, so that's why I kind of cleaned it up and I sort of had to figure it out for myself, so I knew when I drew them simpler later on in the scene, I kind of knew what I was working off of, because otherwise, but rather than doing a design sheet, a character sheet, as would be in a traditional production, I just did it in the boards. So that is really a huge difference too. But for example, like how detailed Angel's outfit is even on the frame that we're currently clicked on, like that's the level of detail I probably would go in most things, where it's just, you just see the anatomy, just see the character, maybe a quick expression if it's valuable. But I didn't need to redraw her robot arm every single time. That would be crazy. You don't have to draw all the little flourishes on her jacket and everything, because again, that would be crazy. So it's really about sort of the shape and the gesture of the character. I would say on an action projects though, anatomy is pretty important. So making sure it's not just gestural, you usually have to be pretty on proportion, especially if it's a 2D production. 3D, you can be a little looser with those kind of details.
So this is a really ambitious board, and there's some really cool character beats in it. There's a lot of action. How long did it take to work on this project from start to finish, or to the point that you're at right now? And what kinds of steps do you take?
So I work very differently when I work alone. So for work, usually go through like a thumb pass and then go through a rough. In truth, if I'm working on my own, I like to just go straight. Like I like to just kind of, I sometimes figure it out really, really loose, like chicken scratch loose, like something you could never turn in a storyboard, just enough so I can look at it. And then I usually go right into this phase. So I'm pretty two note on that front. It's either chicken scratch or kind of starts getting to this phase. Usually like toning I would do last and stuff. So I usually do a toning pass at the end. So that's like the third phase. Honestly, it's hard to determine the amount of time because I work on it on and off. Like, you know, sometimes it would be like 15 minutes an evening or maybe even an hour if I get lucky. But I'm also planning ahead and working on the rest of the scene. I've also taken breaks in between to write the script for it. And so I have like a full pilot script for it. So I knew where the characters were going when I first started working on it. So over probably a year, I've really been working on this. But it's been like 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. That probably would equate to like 2 weeks, but like 2 solid weeks of work. So it probably would be for like a short animatic like this, probably 2 weeks. But again, like I'm talking about like full work weeks. If I like combined all the time together, like it's definitely like longer than you would have like at work to do this kind of stuff. But yeah, that's probably the approximation. And then again, I've figured out stuff way ahead and I bounce around sometimes if I'm like, know where I want it to go. But those are the chicken scratches, which is not here.
Do you find it's hard to work on a personal project when your day job is very creative and very, because I talk to a lot of artists and sometimes it can be very draining to work on a personal project and also work on storyboards and directing in your day job?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like it is extremely draining. I think that initially personal projects came for me as a release from sometimes, you know, sometimes a production is not doesn't speak to you creatively and not, you know, or you're working on something where you know that you want to work on certain aspects of yourself. And I think that can be motivators for me where it's like it is different enough because it gets to be my story and that is my motivating factor. But absolutely, there are many days I don't have time to work on this stuff. And usually like the last thing you want to do with your brain after thinking about story beats all day is do it some more. So you need like something that's completely mindless. And that's usually what I save cleanup for. Like cleanup is different. But honestly, like I wear a hand brace and that's to keep my hand going. And I can't always work on personal stuff because I need to rest and take care of myself for the workday because our jobs are extremely grueling. I mean, you are working over 40 hours a week, if we're honest. Like it's, you know, you're lucky if you're only working 40 hours a week. And I do a lot of work outside of my day job as well. So it can be pretty intense. And I think it's just about figuring out, not pushing yourself to do personal projects, finding the joy in it. Because I find that if I start forcing myself to do it, it's not going to come out good. You're not going to enjoy it as much. You have to want to be doing it and enjoying it. And I let myself just kind of do it at the pace that feels natural. Like if I have a weekend and I'm really feeling it, then I go do it. But if I'm not, like it ceases to be fun and becomes another job. And I think people have to be careful of acknowledging that it's okay to not have to chase everything. But if you are passionate about it, definitely, absolutely work on it. And I think you'll naturally find that space if you are just that crazy passionate, which is I think my crazy motivating side of me is I just get really excited and enthusiastic and like to work on things when I have that emotional moment.
For sure. So one of the things that I also really connected with about this animatic is the design of the characters, including Angel and the incidental characters that burst into this room. I was curious about your approach to the designs and what the designs tell us about the character.
Absolutely. So I do like designing too, and actually I think on my bucket list of things I want to do, I do want to eventually do some design. I haven't done it professionally, and it's something that I really do enjoy doing, such as anecdotal, that I like doing design a lot. For me, probably the influences for a lot of this is probably people can guess is I am a big Western sci-fi anime lover, and that is a lot of the influences here is it's just in that kind of world of like mixing, you know, Wild West, post-apocalyptic with sci-fi. And I, you know, like also like how Mad Max and Borderlands are kind of within those worlds as well. And it kind of marries those kind of fusions of those kind of worlds together. And that's sort of where the characters lie for me. And I think I just pull mentally from all those kind of influences as like biker gangs meets, you know, robots. And that's kind of really just where I kind of sit with it. And that's really, I enjoy doing those kind of worlds and building those kind of worlds. They're a lot of fun for me. I like really all those kind of weird marriages of genres.
Yeah, I think one really cool thing about the current, I guess the current state of the animation industry is that there are a lot of artists who are pushing into different genres where you see things that animation, especially in like Western animation, didn't really touch until very recently.
It's true, and I know a lot coming down the pipeline, which I can't spoil, but I can tell people who are watching that there is some really cool stuff that is being made that I think is challenging all that. And I am so excited for the future of animation. I think that streaming has opened the gates to so many more different types of work and projects that, you know, like I was one of the many that went to art school, and I think what people can probably guess from my art style too is I was a kid that was told, get anime out of your system. Get it, your work shouldn't show any anime. And I think what I ended up doing was finding a style that felt Western enough to be acceptable in early animation world, but still had those anime influences. And I think that that's where I kind of found my personal art style was taking a little bit of those Disney boards and then feature boards and so forth, and a little bit of that kind of flavor, but still then taking a little bit of like, you know, the Miyazaki and the Hosodas of the world and just kind of, and Yuasas, and like finding kind of that balance of where I love to live in art, and finding a shorthand also that works well and fast for boards. So I feel like those are kind of where I found that art style. And again, you know, it's changed already though. When I started getting in the industry, for the first time I started hearing like, plenty of people were like, we're looking for people with anime art experience or have that knowledge. And because anime is becoming more popular in the animation sphere, a lot of people that used to love it are now becoming, you know, showrunners and bosses and project managers of all these projects where, you know, that used to not be the case. So now there are people who have that language and that understanding within the field that have that appreciation that I think it's exploding everywhere. Is, you know, it's a lot of global influences because French animation too, Brazilian animation, like Irish animation, they all have such vivid and interesting things to bring to the table. And I actually love that it's becoming a more globalized industry here too. You know, I think it's really cool, and it opens the gates for more ideas and more projects.
Yeah, when I was talking with Artel Isom and Henry Thurlow, they were at Dorstagio at the time, and I think Henry's now at Toya Animation. But 20 years ago, artists like that who are really into anime and those styles of animation couldn't find work in Western studios and had to move to Japan to pursue the work that they really loved. And now it's really cool that you're starting to see more places embracing that style of animation, or even just genres that go beyond comedy. That I think it shows that the animation industry is growing and expanding, and there's just a lot more out there.
For sure. I mean, I think that that's kind of the idea is like, if that's not your genre too, there is work that, goes against it too. And I want that space to exist. I think it's more just broadening um, what animation can look like and what animation can be is just the most exciting prospect for me. And yeah, I mean, I had given up a lot of dreams because I thought, well, and I almost moved to Japan as well. I almost wanted to work as a mangaka, which I realized was very difficult for an American to go do when I got older, outside of middle school ambitions. But yeah, I thought for a while of entering actually specifically the Japanese games industry because I wasn't yet seeing a reflection of animation made at a more sophisticated level in American media. Like I feel like American animation until like right now really was just, it's either for babies or it's for super adults. And I was like, where's the middle? Where's the middle that I liked? And even like, around third grade, I was watching, Outlaw Star and Cowboy Bebop. Like I was into those things at 10 years old. And I don't think American media acknowledged that, or even 8 years old, I guess. I was even younger. Like, at that age, I was already interested in things that were more sophisticated than my media was showing me. And I think that that is a little bit of a presumption, is that kids are kind of babied in Western media, or they just assume they go immediately to live action. And I think that that's why a lot of us found anime. It wasn't, it was addressing the empty space, the empty void of where so many kids actually are excited. And I think we are starting to see that where video games started filling that void, like where something like an Overwatch or, a League of Legends, like with Arcane and so forth, like kids are getting into that at 8 years old and are gravitating towards it and liking it. And that's their space.
Yeah, even just the idea that sorry about that. Even just the idea that like an animated series can follow an episodic, or no, sorry, a serialized story that like changes, and there is like a status quo that changes. I think has been a big shift in the animation industry in the past 10 years.
For sure. I mean, I think things like, for example, like Maya and the Three was so exciting to see.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to ask you, you mentioned a little bit about the use of tone in these storyboards, and I want to ask you, how do you approach these tone and fills for backgrounds and objects, and what kinds of purposes does it serve in these boards?
So for me, toning and these kind of maps in general, we'll see if I can click to the top of the playhead, but no promises.
Fingers
But
crossed.
yeah, yeah, I know, right? The idea here is that for me, toning and in general portrays mood. And it's something that is, for example, like you don't, without toning here, you wouldn't get the sense that it's sort of a dark room, that it's night. And again, it's very basic toning, but I feel like it still kind of gets the point across. Again, the little light around the door frame. It's just ways in which to kind of just heighten sort of what you're looking at, what you're interacting with. Again, having the character's hands enter frame is just a lot more clear when you can tone it in white and then tone an object in a darker tone color, so that when you kind of know what you're paying attention to, because without color, toning is a really helpful way to get around color. And obviously you don't have to color tone everything. I think I use it again for like tech. My go-to is always that like light, cool, Tron blue, which I use later on with like Mickey and his oh my god, binoculars, his like future tech binoculars. So that's sort of the idea there, is just really kind of portraying mood. And I think it's very valuable for portraying time of day and mood when it's key. And yeah.
We got a question in the audience about some of the process for the boards. Do you use reference for poses, or do you come up with them through just your drawings and I guess wholesale invention?
Both, absolutely. Please use references. Do not cripple yourself by not using references. That is ridiculous. I don't know how to draw tying something behind your head. Like, it's fine to look up an image on Google image search and do it, or even do it yourself. Sometimes for martial arts stuff, like I even, do it myself or film myself and figure it out. Like, I don't kill yourself trying to figure everything out off the top of your head. I mean, certainly I do explore some things like for the comedy stuff, like you can't really find like a real life reference for that. So you kind of have to just sort of figure that out. But again, like studying shows that you like, looking at the things that you like, use those references, be inspired by everything around you. I think that that's important too, is making sure that, even what I find is there's something you think that you know how to draw, and then you look at it and you realize that it's wrong. And I think that that's okay to kind of be in that space. Sometimes I will admit, like sometimes I'm lazy, like probably for like poses like this where she's just like her hands are down, that's just a gesture. But again, like when it's something more complicated, especially when hands, like intricacies with hands, like I think thinking that off the top of your head, you're just going to get a clearer sense being able to look at that or think about something like that.
We got a few questions about how long did it take you to develop the skills that led you to be able to board like this, and what kind of skills go into these types of storyboards?
Storyboarding is a mastery of everything. That is the unfortunate truth. So I think that is the hardest part of storyboarding, is you kind of learn to be good at everything because you kind of have to. I would say that my cat is making lots of noise, so I apologize for that. That's what was distracting me. Generally, I mean, I've been working at this for my whole life, but as long as you just keep practicing, you will get to a certain point where I think you can start to see it. And it's important to work on perspective, studying live action and animated film to get a sense of how to stage things, how other people stage things, make your own boards until you get to a professional level, and then you learn a lot on the job as well. So there's so many different phases and stages to getting to this point. And I think it's more, I even think I can be better and push myself farther. And it's really just, I just keep studying and just keep trying to grow and just never stop that kind of process. But again, focusing on anatomy, making sure that all those auxiliary skills are there is very important. A good lesson I've learned and have heard is you want to get a point with storyboarding where the other things become second nature to you. So understanding perspective, understanding anatomy, all should be more natural to you so that you can start to form the shots that are in your head. And so that's really what those tools are there for. So the more you study the fundamentals, the more that'll help inform your shot flow and all your other work that you build in the boards.
Yeah, I find it so amazing that it's a craft that requires anatomy, perspective, cinematography, just visual storytelling in general. There's a lot that goes into storyboarding. Do you have any advice for students and aspiring storyboard artists who are interested in planning action scenes themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think studying is the first way to go. Find an action scene that resonates with you. Why do you love it? And look at it and study it. Maybe do like thumbnail sketches. So that's like a common studying practice that I love to do, is you watch something. I mean, one time I was sitting on the plane and I was watching Logan, and I had a little notebook and I was just sketching out each of the frames from Logan because I thought it was such a beautifully shot film and so informed by Westerns. And That was like a huge, exciting thing for me. And just doing that, like, why does this resonate with you? And then you'll get to a certain point where you can start to plan and map out your own things. But again, I think that that's a part. Also, keeping in mind with action scenes and when you're planning them out, they have a flow like music to me. And that is how I always make sense of action. Action is a song. It's not cool movements. There is a crescendo. There is, you know, I don't know my music terminology now, so I'm embarrassing myself. But there is the ebb and flow inherently to it. So, you know, when you get to the chorus, the swell of emotion, it has an arc just as much as a 3-act story structure does, all condensed into a fight. So having 2 characters, think of it as shoulder, you know, over the shoulder, reverse, reverse. So like you're cutting from one character, reacting to the other character, reacting, and then a wide of establishing where they are. Follows the same principles of a talking scene. So if you can master a talking scene, you can master an action scene. And I think that that's why a lot of people jump into action, but they can do the movements, but they don't understand how to make it. And it's because they haven't understood a basic talking scene yet. And you really have to master 2 characters talking to each other in a room. If you can master that, you can do 2 characters fighting in a room. It's kind of the same principles with both.
So, building on that, Liza, what was your career path to becoming a director?
Yeah, so I actually didn't major into animation, which I think is probably surprising to you and surprising to others. But at the time, animation was always my passion since I was like 5 years old. So I will say I wanted to go into animation. And then I hit high school age, about like when you're starting to think about college, and everyone's saying 2D is dead, no more 2D, you have to learn 3D software. And I was like, I don't want to learn 3D software. I tried and I was like, this is not for me. I like drawing with a pencil on paper or, you know, on a tablet on the computer. And so I kind of gave up hope a little bit and actually thought about maybe becoming a writer for TV, which I know is still a pipe dream. And then my parents were like, you're going to school for computer science. So I ended up getting a degree that was sort of like an interactive media degree. But all the while getting that degree, I still started making interactive animation projects. I still couldn't pull myself away from drawing and animating. And then as soon as I graduated, I actually had a teacher. I did take a storyboarding class for film, and he worked out in New York. I was in New York at the time, and he was like, you should be doing this professionally, which was very kind of him. And he gave me some freelance work. It was in advertising, but it was my first foray into storyboarding and understanding like that kind of work. And anytime I would do any other work, I was like, I just want to storyboard. I just want to storyboard. And so eventually I moved out to California, took a few classes out here at the Guild, at CDA, and then got a job, I guess 6 years ago now. And then just really worked with my directors, really wanted to know what their job roles were and how to get to that point in my career, and really also help them along with like, okay, hey, so I'm clearly at this level. How do I get to your level? What can I do to make your job easier? And I think I had a mentor ultimately that really liked the work I did. I worked with him a lot, and he gave me first opportunities at directing positions because they moved up to supervisor. And that's really sort of what it was, is I just got a call one day and they're like, hey, I'm supervising a new show. Would you like to come direct? And that was the first 2 or several opportunities I got for directing. And then just after a while, that was sort of it, you know. So you just keep working hard. You show that you're a good storyboard artist and that you're really excited to learn. And I like to say, once you start getting less and less notes, then you're usually more ready to be a director. That's usually like the clear sign, is like when you're getting less and less notes on the basics, then people know, okay, you're ready to get to the next phase. And then also showing good human interrelation skills, I think. Understanding people, understanding how to direct is very important and kind of sometimes overlooked by people that want that job. You have to know that you're also working with people and guiding them. That's a huge part of the job. It's not just the title. It's not just the fancy title.
Liza, what inspires you as a director and filmmaker, and which Western movies should we all be watching?
Oh man. Those are all great questions. So many things inspire me. I mean, again, I think it is all, I just have always loved filmmaking and film since I was a kid. I had older parents, and so they would take me to a movie theater where it would all be only like films from all across the world. So all foreign films, like all very serious dramas. So I didn't actually grow up with a lot of like American films. I grew up with a lot of like international films, and I would just study them and love them and gravitate to them. Also, video games and anime, of course, was my own kind of findings as a kid on my own. And I think I just got so enamored with like, I mean, I remember the emotions I felt the first time I saw the opening MOV to Final Fantasy VIII, like sparked something in my head. I was super, super young, and just I saw it and I was like, the emotions I feel, the drama, the tension, it like was all there for me. Same with the Kingdom Hearts opening, like all those little video game MOVs I would save on my computer. And even though I didn't know I was studying them at the time, I was. And I just knew I wanted to do something like that. So those were the things that initially excited me. And then, so many directors throughout the world, again, like Hosoda's shorthand is one of my big inspirations in my work, because I think his stuff translates to animation so well. I'm taking a breath, but I mean, even of course, like I went through like a film kid, like Tarantino phase too in high school and everything. I think that that's pretty common, where you just like watch all those films and stuff. Yeah, so I mean, those were all inspirations for me. And then I just knew I wanted to tell stories. So even outside of storyboarding classes, I take a ton of writing classes and have taken tons of writing classes. I consider writing my equal love. And actually, storyboarding became the solution and directing became the solution, because I was like, I love drawing so much. I love writing so much. How do I do the two? So that's why, that was how I found this kind of career path. Was I was like, well, directing is kind of the marriage of both. You get to work with both the visual elements and the written elements and combine them into a cohesive visual story. And that's really where I found myself becoming a director. And then what Western films? I would say The Good, the Bad, and the Weird was actually one of my favorites recently, which is actually a Korean film. It's really, really fun. It's really cool and very funny. Obviously, there's all the classics, Blazing Saddles too, of course. And, I watched, oh God, I'm blanking on the name, but I watched that one recently that just came out on Netflix too. That was a ton of fun. I'm very bad with names, unfortunately. And of course, when I'm on the spot, that's when I forget them. But that was really cool. And then, yeah, of course, like I think Logan also is a really good Western to pull from. It has a lot of Western language in it too, as a really cool reimagining of that. But yeah, I mean, I would say that it's like all across the board. I can't even name how many movies that I've watched and loved that have inspired me.
Amazing. So, Lisa, we're running out of time, but where can our viewers find more of your work online?
You can find me at Liza-Singer .com. Liza-Singer.com. I'm like trying to say it off the top of my head, and I can't believe I have to type in my own website. See, this is what happens when I'm on the spot. Yes, Liza-Singer.com is my website, and you can find my public personal work. My professional work is NDA for the most part, so I don't share it. But if you are looking for hiring purposes, that is what that's there for. And then on Twitter, of course, social media. Twitter, I am very all over the board. I sometimes am more personal and sometimes post art, and it's kind of across the board. Instagram, purely art, of course, and I post there as well. And then on TikTok, and I've been posting a little bit purely animatics, and it's Laser Singer, so LaserSinger is the handle for all of those across the board. And I think I also have like an art station I never update.
All right, so thank you so much for speaking with us and for taking us on a tour of your animatic and giving us a peek on how you storyboard action scenes. Next week, we'll be speaking with Adam Oliver about the video tutorials on the Adam's Animation Academy YouTube channel. You don't want to miss it, so be sure to join us next Thursday, and until next time.
Thank you so much.